welcome everyone to this provocative session tonight. My name is Shalailah Medhora and I'm your host for this evening. I'd like to just start off by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, whose lands we are gathered on today, and pay our respects to elders past and present. The question that we're asking in this panel is the fair go of disruption. What is Australia's role in AI innovation? Australians tend to think of ourselves as laid back, as authentic, as trustworthy, but do these things actually help when it comes to AI innovation? I feel like we could talk about this forever, but we have 20 minutes, so I won't go through and individually announce all of our panelists today. We'll just dive right in. So I want to start with you, MC. As we said, some of those characteristics, those values that we expect as Australians, they can be our superpowers, but can they also hold us back?
Great question, Shalailah. I'll start with a tiny caveat. I've lived in Australia for almost 10 years. Aussie husband, Aussie kids, but I am Swedish-French. I've lived in about 4 continents, so I suppose just a bit of context to my perspective. But a lot of the qualities of Australians are, we are fairly skeptical of hype. We like realness. We want the thing to be tangible. And we typically want to try before we buy. And I think a lot of those things can really be seen as strength, but it can also, if we choose to, see it as a way to hold us back. I think it's about trying to work out how we can go from skepticism and turn that into curiosity and experimentation. And I think that's where we really see progress and we can move forward. If we choose to hold back and wait for some kind of proof around authenticity, that could set us back, right? One example is if I look at, for example, the creative industry where I'm in, there's this healthy tension between what Cam actually was mentioning earlier is this excitement and anxiety. The anxiety is around, the overload of tools and the amount of platforms you can use today for AI. Getting on top of that, the pace of the technology that it's moving at, and people in full-time jobs trying to work out how do I stay on top of this technology and how do I learn all of this? Whilst we have this crazy excitement around what we can do with creative ideas now. Anything can be done. We can unlock any idea. There's literally no more limit to what can be done, which is that, like that excitement side. Talking a little bit about mindsets, if I kind of bring it back to the context of what my day-to-day is, so I work with AI artists from all over the world that are truly specialized talent. So they come from, they have a filmmaking background, editing, animation, motion graphics, and they have been on the tools for years. They have a mindset of innovation first, curiosity first, and obviously creativity. So if we can learn from that, I think that would probably help us a little bit along the journey. But creativity is something I wanted to just hone in on because I truly think that Australia's strongest currency is creativity. We have a history of being world-class in terms of advertising creative and filmmaking. I think that's just something to really kind of hone in on. And I guess the question is then, are we willing to lead with curiosity and creativity, or are we wanting to just kind of wait for that proof to kind of come around? And I think that also authenticity is not necessarily the holdback, it's probably the hesitation and the caution. But if we actually really try and hone in and lead with creativity and curiosity, I think we can go really far.
Sherif, MC mentioned there that she thinks creativity is our strongest suit. I want to go to the other point with you, and I want to discuss some of the friction points. What do you think is potentially holding us back here?
Yeah, I do think you have a point on the authenticity side. I think most Aussies would agree that they'd probably prefer an authentic feeling AI that maybe is not as polished to something that is super polished. I think most of us crave the genuineness of things.
Is it our bullshit detector?
Yeah, the BS detector. But we tell it how it is in everything we do. And my perspective that I often see a lot is just dealing with businesses deploying AI. And that comes through there too. So it comes probably in roughly 3 different ways. Authenticity, okay, that's a challenge. Why is that a challenge? Because I don't trust it. Okay, why is trust a challenge? Often the priority 0 for most of these businesses is transparency. Like, how do we make sure that when we're dealing with AI in a business context, it's transparent? When I ask it a question and I'm sitting on my desk, it's giving me the best citations it possibly can, and it's not making stuff up. I don't want to look like an idiot. It needs to help me there. When someone on my team's built an agent, how do I know exactly how it works, and can I inspect it? Can I see its instructions? And so I think transparency is just a key ingredient to just helping with that trust, which then helps with that authenticity. I think the 2 other things I see a lot, and it's at the team level, not necessarily the company level, if that makes sense, but as teams deploying AI, they want to add their own team's character to it. And like, I don't mean character like as in personify the AI. I think it's just every team has like in-jokes and culture and their voice and tone, and this is how we speak here and how I deploy.
You don't want it to feel one size fits all.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're in a frontline team in a bank, you have a different voice and tone to the creative marketing team that's working for a digital agency, right? So, and I think that's personalizing it for that team use case is key. And the last one I'll just add is a big part of what's happening right now is this phrase AI slop. I think everyone's heard about AI slop. And you know, if you type a prompt and I type a prompt and Pierre types a prompt and we type the same prompt in 12 different AI tools, we'll probably get a pretty similar outcome. And so how do we solve that problem? Well, really, it's just about us applying our taste and our judgment and our opinions and how we think things should work, and how does taste work in our context in my team, in this business, or whatever it is. So I think those 3 things really help with just there's a general feel of authenticity and just accelerate that adoption cycle.
Absolutely. Yeah. JJ, I wanted to bring you in here. You created an AI business that was rapidly scaled and acquired. Can the 2 of those things work together? Can you be authentic and scale quickly?
Yeah, look, I think key to authenticity is really thinking a lot about how we work with AI. I think some of what Sherif was saying is very relevant to that. You know, I think you know, when we founded Leonardo, one of the key pieces for us was ensuring people had a greater sense of control over the models, felt augmented rather than automated. And I think that that's true at any scale. You know, if we think about you know, anywhere from an individual creator working to realise their creative vision, or maybe you know, a marketing team working in a corporate on an advertising campaign. I think it's really you know, using AI as a sparring partner rather than there's this sort of black box to automate the entire task is really how we can sort of ensure that we get unique and interesting outputs. And you know, maybe
sounds like this character point that Sherif was making.
100%. I think just you know, echoing in terms of like if we just think about something probably most of us can relate to is how we use chatbots, right? If you want to you know, write a LinkedIn post or an email or a marketing treatment, and you just go and you put a simple prompt in, you get something back that you could use, but it's probably AI slop. If you want something really useful, unique, and you know, actually authentic, I think you need to do a lot more. You need to provide a lot of context. You need to go through a bit of an iterative process, challenge the responses you get, and you know, do something to finesse that output rather than just taking it as this black box automation that just does the job for you. Because I think that's how you don't get interesting outputs. If you want authenticity, I think you need to be part of the process. Yeah.
Pierre, one of the things that I know you really want to bring to the table in this conversation is the risk of late adoption versus not adopting at all. I'm hoping you can talk us through why you think that's such a big issue.
Well, yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, there are risks in adopting AI and there are risks in not adopting AI, so it's a very difficult balance to keep. I'm quite focused on the risk of not adopting AI because it's something that the game is on. We are on this game, so we can't really avoid it.
You can't opt out.
You can't opt out. And I think the best thing we can do is to just work together, understand what are the opportunities, as we heard from the previous session in healthcare, understand the risks, and managing those risks. What we notice in like bringing facts to the table is the early adopters of AI, they're already experiencing a number of benefits, whether it's through software development in a faster way or reducing risk or increasing productivity, or even getting better decision or better quality decision, whilst the other one, will struggle to catch up, and the capability gap is increasing over time. I guess the other element is we need really to focus on what the use case and what the problem we want to solve, because that will inform us on what's our risk posture to it. If it's really worth it, you want to, if the reward is high, like in the case of healthcare, it's really fascinating, then you may want to understand that reward against the risk. But I don't think the solution is to opt out. And actually also from a capability point of view, we want to know how the future of our children will look like and where we need to direct them, because some job will change and there will be missed opportunity, new roles that today don't exist. So I think the best way we can approach that, in my opinion, is just to start to lean in and understand very carefully what are the opportunity and the risks.
To Pierre's point, just the earlier you adopt, these teams adopt, the earlier we learn. And we need to find ways to adopt at a risk-managed way as early as possible. And one thing we all need to get better at is learning how we use it on a regular basis and how we can use it on a regular basis. So delaying that is just simply delaying the learning cycles. And these learning cycles are very useful for us to make informed decisions. It's hard to judge without us actually learning from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll throw this open to all of you, but I might start with you, Pierre. What are the financial risks of not adopting? And are financial risks the only risks of not adopting?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a number of things you can all read on the internet about the numbers. So I'm not going to put numbers because everybody's talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in the next few years, but they're all projection. I think for me the point is, we were just talking about the gap between the adopter and the one that are lagging is increasing exponentially. So if you are 6 months behind, you're not 6 months behind. You're probably 18 months behind, because by the time you catch up, all the technology has been changing, and it's very difficult to stay on top of it. So that will obviously generate financial gaps and et cetera. But there are other important considerations that we all need to focus on, the ethical aspect of it. And again, I go back always to the use cases, right? So there's a lot of discussion around AI, but we just need to be focusing on what are the problems we need to solve and how do we address that to avoid those gaps in the future.
I'm wondering if any of you have any thoughts about what the risks are, maybe not just financial risks, but other types of risks of not adopting.
I mean, I think there's, as much as there's risks, there's also huge opportunities. So I think, one interesting one is maybe from a cultural perspective, something that AI actually offers us, I think, is this enormous opportunity to democratize access to things that maybe would otherwise be out of reach. And I think you touched on this earlier, MC, where, if we look at the creative space, historically, there's been a long interplay between technology and creativity. If we look at, let's say, painting as a discipline, art supplies used to be incredibly expensive, and then came the Industrial Revolution and lowered the cost of goods, and that opened up that industry far more. More recently, the advent of the digital camera, and DSLRs with their capability to do video open up the filmmaking industry incredibly. And I think that AI has the same potential in the creative space as we think about creators who are now able to realise their creative vision maybe in ways that would not otherwise have been possible due to financial constraints or resourcing constraints.
MC, we often hear, on that point, I do want to ask you, often we hear creatives potentially being a bit more sceptical of AI as a tool that might take their jobs or might sanitize what is often a passionate project of theirs or something that they have invested a lot of their creativity in. Yeah. To that point of cultural sort of risk, what do you make of the creative side of things when it comes to that cultural risk?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you bring that up, because we deal with a lot of this kind of on a daily basis. talking with creative teams that want to do fantastic work and want to leverage AI, you can see that some groups in the industry are still very hesitant, obviously protective of their craft and protective of their profession, and rightfully so. But I think the reality is that this thing is not something you can shy away from. And we're trying to take a very optimistic approach to how it can actually amplify creativity and enable more creativity. And I think a lot of it comes down to what you've been talking about a little bit, is like how much kind of control can you get in the AI space. So a lot of the fear is around, okay, there's my craft, don't come too close to my craft. But I think also that's the problem there is people don't understand where how you actually get to craft with AI yet, and that's probably a lack of knowledge. And that's where the type of talent that we work with it's purely next level talent, where they actually can do all of the things. They can jump in, they can truly like create, full VFX work or full CGI worlds, but they can also leverage the tools, and that's where they specialized. So in terms of risks, I think AI slop was one thing that Sherif brought up, which I think the craft is a way to counter that, and the artistry in AI is truly something that's emerging. It's like a movement of artists all over the world that specializes. But what we can see is, from a risk and business point of view, is agencies are having to completely transform their business model. Same for production companies, because this thing is coming really, really fast. And now with tools being integrated, like whether it's Leonardo or whether you have Figma, where you have Weavy brought into it, you're getting all the control now in place that you can produce fantastic things with AI, and the craft is there.
Let's be real. A lot of people don't understand AI. AI might have a perception problem. Sherif, I wanted to ask you, and feel free to jump in here with all of the expertise in your specific sectors, but what needs to change the perception of AI?
Yeah, I'm big on the word tinkering. I always feel like we need to tinker to inform ourselves in our personal lives. And then when we learn, we can make informed decisions, and we can lobby governments, and we can work out how it's going to impact the workplace and whatever. And if we're not using it personally, it becomes very hard for us to make an opinion. And you all have an experience, each one of you in the audience, and AI will impact you in some way. And so tinkering as early as possible is important. We encourage our kids to do this. We encourage our kids to try new things and try things early. I think what's hard is behavioral change, right? Like, if I have a new task to do, I can do it the old way, or I can just try something new which might not work, might work, who knows, I'll learn something. And so making time for that behavioral change is key. If I look back at other big technology movements, social media wave that hit us years ago, I think we learned a little bit the hard way of some of the implications of this technology wave, just not making ourselves aware. I'm a parent, so when I go to school and I talk to other parents at schools, half of them don't know how to set up controls for things, whatever. So because they haven't played with that stuff or set it up. So I'm usually tech support for most of the parents at school, but stuff like that is just tinker is such an important thing. It's just the Aussie culture of have a go. We just got to have a go. Yeah.
And I think also working on the mindset is super important, because we need to understand where we can partner with AI as opposed to competing with AI, because there are some tasks, AI is always going to be better than me in doing math, or a certain type of calculation. I'm not going to be faster, but there are things that I can be better than AI. So instead of trying to get stuck to what you know and think about, it's going to compete against me, let's go into that race, it's just changing a little bit the mindset and say, well, that task, AI will do it better than me, so you can free capacity for me to other things that AI is not very good at that. And we have a big role to play in terms of ethics and bringing our value to the AI, because AI doesn't grow up with value, so we have a role to play, and so on and so forth. So I think collaboration, and you mentioned, JJ, this morning about the augmentation rather than automation. I think that's an important point as well.
Anything you'd like to add in the last few minutes we have?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that I think the sort of Australian mentality is one of relentless pragmatism, but also healthy skepticism. I think that sets us up very well for adopting AI, but also being mindful of its limitations. And I think that kind of very conscious, usage of AI, I think, is kind of what we need to move forward in a really productive way. Yeah.
Final word to you, MC.
I'm not sure if the question's coming up, but for me, it's a little bit what we've talked about is adding the human into the process and the soul. I mean, we talk a little bit about soul because in creative works, there's a lot about, memory and taste and lived experiences and feelings, like the things that AI can't bring to the table, particularly not in creative works, but I would say even in product and UX, like experience design, like these things are very, very human, and these things are super critical to bring to it. And I think some misconceptions are that it's here to replace, and to your point about it's not about automation, it's about augmentation. I think people forget about that. And that's also where some of that AI slop comes from. It's the human in the mix is what makes all the difference.
Absolutely. It's been provoking, as the title would suggest, and I would like to thank all four of you for your thoughts and your insights and your varied experience, and I'm hoping you can put your hands together and thank them also.